brothers or something?
Oh, yeah. He was, yeah, he had ties of their own.
I did not know that.
Can I tell you about our fund the other one?
Yeah, did he call me and walk with you? No?
With the,
Oh, the dog, yeah, the loose dog.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the lady came, was gonna, the guy was gonna take you out.
It's kind of not from, and I see it at Main Street Boatman, with the extremely long yellow boat trailer. There's
Oh,
only one of them trucks there. And he took it, the dog in the house today.
well, maybe he took him home.
Yeah.
Maybe he took him home.
So he took it to Petty, and it's on some lost site.
Okay.
Okay, it's good, and she mentioned today, as of like right yesterday, some, no one came, the new puppy, a female, beautiful dog. And it wasn't growling at us or training,
Right, more than her.
it was just hungry.
Well, and Ken said they got a collar, but it's a new tag. I had to get a new tag from somebody.
Great idea. Store that stuff.
I'd like to call the tonight's meeting of the Shelbyville City Council to order. Everyone could please rise for the invocation and the pledge. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this beautiful day that you've given us, and thank you for the opportunity that we could get together today and discuss the business of the people of the city of Shelbyville. Please be with our first responders and our police force and our soldiers overseas as they fight to help protect our freedoms. And please help us this evening as we make decisions for the people of the city of Shelbyville. In your name we pray. Amen. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
roll call, please.
Gray,
Present.
Schaefer.
Here.
Shanks.
Yes.
Scholl.
Yes.
Mayor.
Here. Item number 3 is a request to approve the consent agenda. The consent agenda includes the minutes of the last August 1st meeting, minutes of the July 5th executive session, claims to be approved for payment, and the July 2022 financial statements. Are there any questions on the consent agenda? Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Commissioner Schaefer, do we have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Gray, roll call please.
Gray,
Yes.
Schaefer.
Yes.
Shanks.
Yes.
Scholl.
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes. Item number 4 is a request to approve a cooperative education agreement with the Shelbyville School District. We have a employee that's been working in the water department in the office for the summer and has the opportunity to go ahead and through the cooperative education continue working into the end of the new school year. Commissioner Shaw, do you have anything you want to?
She has done a good job this summer. The school thinks highly of her, and we're glad to have her.
Sounds good. Does anybody have any questions or any concerns? Do we have a motion to approve the education agreement with the school? Commissioner Shaw, seconded Commissioner Gray. Roll call, please.
Gray,
Yes.
Schaefer.
Yes.
Shanks.
Yes.
Scholl.
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes. Item number 5 is a request to approve the placement of the storage pod in the Forest Park by the wrestling building to be owned and maintained by the school district. Commissioner Shanks, did you want to talk about that?
Sure, yes, I've been approached by the school administration about having a container, shipping container, basically a storage pod placed next to the wrestling building in Forest Park to be used to house equipment for both the wrestling and sport and the baseball teams. I think that's a great idea. They've even talked about putting the school logo on it. It would be something nice and well maintained. It would be at the west end of the parking lot next to the wrestling building. And I think we should approve them placing that there. Jack assures me that it fits under our current intergovernmental agreement for storage. It's listed in there. And that they would remove the pod at our request if necessary.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Kylie, do you want to add
No,
anything?
that's right. The government 2007, contemplated storage on the site, so I think it's fine.
Does anybody have any questions? Do we have a motion to approve the request to place the storage pod?
So moved.
Commissioner Shanks, do we have a second?
Second?
Commissioner Schaefer, roll call, please.
Gray,
Yes.
Schaefer,
Yes.
Shanks.
Yes.
Scholl,
Yes.
Mayor,
Yes. Item number 6 is a request to approve the purchase of a new police vehicle. Commissioner Gray,
We rotate our vehicles through, we try to replace a vehicle like once or twice once every year, or once every 2 years. It's time for this vehicle to be rotated out. It's a 2015 Chevrolet Tahoe with 61,000 miles. We're going to be purchasing a 2022 Ram 1500 pickup truck. The cost of that truck is $40,749.
thank you. Chief, did you want to add anything? Or?
No, other than the Tahoe we're trading in, it's almost 8 years old, and it's still in really good condition, and we're getting a good price for it, so I thought it'd be a good deal all around.
Okay. Are there any questions?
I make a motion, we approve the purchase of this new vehicle.
Commissioner Gray, do we have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Schell, roll call, please.
Gray,
Yes.
Schaefer,
Yes.
Shanks.
Yes.
Scholl,
Yes.
Mayor,
Yes. Item number 7 is a request to approve an ordinance to declare the Chevy Tahoe as surplus property, and I assume that's the Tahoe that we were just discussing.
Yeah, this vehicle, we were offered a trade-in value, I think of $14,000 on the vehicle. We have an opportunity to sell it outside of the trade for significantly more money, and we think we should go that direction. So I'd like to make a motion that we approve this ordinance.
Motion was made by Commissioner Gray. Do we have a second?
Second?
Commissioner Schaefer, roll call, please.
Gray,
Yes.
Schaefer,
Yes.
Shanks.
Yes.
Scholl,
Yes.
Mayor,
Yes. Item number 8 is a request to approve surplus property ordinance and advertised property for sale. This is, are you aware of this, Commissioner Shanks, or? It looks like it's some mowers and some tractors, some John Deere.
from the cemetery.
Oh, yeah,
Cemetery.
the cemetery board approved that, or asked to do that.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions on that? Do we have a motion to approve the ordinance authorizing the sale of the property?
So moved.
Commissioner Shanks, do we have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Schell, roll call, please.
Gray,
Yes.
Schaefer,
Yes.
Shanks.
Yes.
Scholl,
Yes.
Mayor,
Yes. Item number 9 is a request to approve the ordinance to amend the zoning map 505 West North 6th. Yeah.
Mayor and Commissioners, after due notice is required by law, the Planning and Zoning Commission held a public hearing on August 3rd, 2022, commencing at 6 p.m. in the Municipal Building, 170 East Main Street, Shelbyville, Illinois, to consider an application from Dustin Christensen to rezone the following described property from R1 Single Family Residential to R2 Single 2 and Multifamily Residential. 505 West North 6th Street, Shelbyville, Illinois. The commission recommends the zoning for this plot be changed from R1 Single Family Residential to R2 Single 2 and Multifamily Residential.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions on the property or what's going on?
Is this going to be, I take it this is a large house, it's going to be broken up into apartments?
Actually,
Unit apartments?
yeah,
Excuse me, I'm here to speak on behalf of Dustin Christensen. He lives in Utah. He bought the property to be a summer home for his family, to keep it in the family. They were related to the previous owner there. And when they're not here, they want to use it as an Airbnb. They don't want to break the home up at all.
And I guess why the change of the status as far as
Because,
zoning is concerned?
yeah, so because of what's required to run an Airbnb business, there has to be zoned multifamily. So I'd be acting as his property manager there for that property.
Thank you.
Any other questions? We have a motion to approve the ordinance change.
So moved.
Commissioner Shanks, do we have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Shaw, roll call please.
Gray,
Yes.
Schaefer,
Yes?
Shanks,
Yes.
Scholl,
Yes.
Mayor,
Yes. Item number 10 is a request to approve disbursement number 6 from the Illinois Water Revolving Loan Fund. Mark, did you?
Yeah, so this is a disbursement request for the water meter project. Gets the quantities purchased, basically to 100% of meters and other items. So it's $133,400.68 for the contractor and $2,760.94 for engineering. So a total of $136,161.62.
About the last payment on these, Mark?
This won't be the last one, there will still be a retainage held, so but it's basically the last one for the materials.
This will be for the first stage, or actually the main stage of getting all the meters replaced.
Yes, this is the last, all the meters have been purchased, they're sitting, they're waiting to be installed, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are there any other questions? Do we have a motion to approve the disbursement?
So moved.
Commissioner Shanks, do we have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Shaw, roll call please.
Gray,
Yes.
Schaefer,
Yes?
Shanks,
Yes.
Scholl,
Yes.
Mayor,
Yes. Item number 11 is a request to approve a change order and time extension for the water meter systems replacement.
Yeah, so this is, just kind of reconciling the quantities that were ultimately finally purchased, and so the deduct of $33,765. They just didn't need as many lids. There were about 300 and, hold on, I got it here. About 390 meters that they didn't utilize. They just changed the registers out. So ultimately it was a deduct. And then there are about, I talked to Tanner, from the water department, there are about 300 meters left to install, and then they're working through the billing software interface, so that's why the time extension has been requested.
Thank you. Are there any questions or? Do we have a motion to approve the change order and time extension?
So moved.
Commissioner Shaw, do you have a second?
Second?
Commissioner Schaefer, roll call please.
Gray,
Yes.
Schaefer,
Yes?
Shanks.
Yes.
Scholl,
Yes.
Mayor,
Yes. Item number 12 is a request to approve the task order for Chastain and Associates to prepare an application for the Illinois Transportation Enhancement Program grant. Mark, do you want to?
Yeah, so the Illinois Transportation Enhancement Grant was announced basically August 1st. If everybody remembers, City of Shelbyville applied for the last ITEP grant. That runs out to Walmart, that's in design right now. So we're basically thinking to connect that project to the east side of town and then extend that from Walmart West. It is technically just a draft right now, and we'll work through that in the next couple months. I did hand out kind of this map. This is updated from 2013, so it's not exactly completely updated. It will be once we turn in the application. But if anybody has any questions, we'll be working through that grant application if approved to do so.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions, or, I know Commissioner Shanks and I have met with Mark to discuss the ITEP and to look for potential projects that we could apply for. And, you know, the bike path here is one of them that we had come up with.
About 80% of the last cycle's ITEP was bike paths. That's what they're looking at, being funded from the Illinois Transportation Enhancement Program, if you're aware.
So in this stage right here, what kind of construction or whatnot will be entailed with this?
There's different levels of areas that what we were thinking for construction. So there'd be a bike path. I think I understand your question. So a new bike path from the east side up to Morgan that'll connect where there already is a bike lane on Morgan. Then west, kind of my thoughts are there. 6th Street is pretty wide, and we would look at just striping that. I know it's just oil and chipped. We might microsurface it and get a nice true flat surface. There's also between Morgan and Walnut, there'll be a little bit of pavement widening because it's not wide enough through there. And then out west from Walmart, that'll be major construction, with off the back of the right of way there for new bike paths, similar to the last cycle that was applied for.
And that's the one that goes across the Swafford.
No,
You're talking
no,
about
currently-
further west.
Further
That's on further.
Yes.
It's from Walmart on to Petrie Lane and potentially onto the airport and I-10.
Are there any other questions about the ITEP application, and do we want to?
When's the granting of the,
When's it due?
when will they?
Spring
Release
20.
and grade them?
Yeah, spring 2023 is when it's supposed to be announced. Due by end of September.
So what we're looking at today is the 2020 ITEP bike path.
2022.
Path, right.
2022, we're in 2022. 2022 was what was applied for last cycle. And right now, absolutely, this is a draft. More than welcome for discussion. This is approving us to start on getting that application together. More than happy to meet and discuss what else we're gonna, revise for the application.
Do we have any other questions, or are we interested in hiring Chastain to apply for the grant for us?
I would make a motion that we go ahead with the grant application process.
Commissioner Shanks, do we have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Gray, roll call, please.
Gray,
Yes.
Schaefer,
Yes.
Shanks.
Yes.
Scholl,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes. Item number 13 is a discussion and request to approve contribution to the cemetery road maintenance. Do you know much?
I can discuss it a little bit. The cemetery board has met and for quite some time discussed improvements needed to the roads off of 9th Street into the cemetery. And since there is a fairly high usage by regular city traffic and trucks and things, and those roads are in a fairly deteriorated condition, they're asking if the city would be willing to contribute, I believe it's $7,500 towards the maintenance of those roads, since they're shared use roads.
There is a lot of traffic on that road, and I don't think that was the intent of it when it was put in, but they use it for jumping from 9th to 6th Street an awful lot.
Does anybody have any questions, or? Do we want to go ahead and contribute one time the $7,500 for 50% of the cost of the maintenance for that section of the road?
I think we should. I'll make that motion.
Commissioner Gray, do we have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Shaw, roll call, please.
Gray,
Yes.
Schaefer,
Yes.
Shanks,
Yes.
Scholl,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes. Item number 13 is, item number 14, a request to approve the standard of care requirements for the ambulance service. Attached, there's a copy of what the county had voted on last week, and, appreciate the county getting involved and getting things kicked off here so we can make a decision. In this standard of care, there are questions on some of the things that are included in there, and so what we want to do this evening is to have a discussion and ask any questions that people have, and hopefully take another step forward towards getting an ambulance service committed to the city of Shelbyville and the surrounding area, the Shelby County area. Has everybody had a chance to look? And I know that there was some questions on some of the items in here and whether, at the end of the day, what we want is who's going to provide the best service for the city. And that there were some questions about whether some of the items in here may limit who would be able to apply. And so we'll go ahead and open up the discussion.
I have questions about it. I'm trying to understand this the best I can, and I understand that there is a state standard of care that IDPH Region 6 provides, and it looks like this is inclusive and greater than that, and that there are some standards in here that are not required by IDPH. And I don't know that that is in our best interest to have additional standards, and if that would potentially preclude some applicants for a license. So I was hoping that somebody could give me the history and a little more understanding of how we got to where we're at.
Troy, do you want to?
What's your question? What item is it? What item is it you're concerned about?
Well, I'm not sure. That's what I don't know. All of the, it looks like there's a couple things here that say, like item G under section 8, it says transport ventilator, and then it says in parentheses, no longer in Region 6 protocols.
Region 6 done away with that?
Well, that's what I'm trying to understand, if the Illinois Department of Public Health has removed that.
Region 6 removed that from protocols. When we started doing this, it was already there. I just didn't strike it all out. That is Region 6. And there is a possibility of it coming back, so it's there in case.
What does that unit cost to put into a rig? Any idea?
You got that, Cabot, they can give you an idea.
We already have the ventilators.
I understand that, but I understand what you have, believe me, I've been informed about all that kind of stuff. I have to agree, I'm wondering if some of this is really necessary to give us the best ambulance care in our area. One of the things that I was informed would be a good idea instead of that was to have a mechanical CPR that helps these guys out if they're out there in the rural country to come in. And you know what I mean.
Yes, sir.
If you're performing CPR in 10 minutes, you're wore out. I don't care who you are.
Sure.
And then you're trying to do everything else while your partner's driving. It seems to me that that would be a more advantageous piece of equipment to have than a ventilator that's on there. How often do you do ventilations when you're doing a transfer?
Quite often, actually. From hospital to a higher level of care.
Those are mostly inter-hospital transfers, critical care equipment.
I mean, if you put in the ordinance that they have to have the CPR machines, that's what you guys put in them, but we have the ventilators for people that are intubated, that are going to a higher level of care.
If you all want to strike items out of this, that's fine. If you want to add items to it, that's fine as well. This is your template to go off of.
Well, I'm not sure I'm equipped to make those judgments. That's why I'm trying to understand why this would be different than what IDPH Region 6 requires, and if that's the state standard, why is not that the standard that we're requesting?
If you're gonna request a CPR machine, that's done in IDPH, is pretty well good.
Well, I didn't say we were, I'm just asking.
No, I mean, if that's, to see if you more options.
If you guys would like, I have Region 6 required equipment for an ALS ambulance as well as IDPH. If you guys would like that. I don't have copies for everybody, but if you guys would like to have that for your records. Was obtained today from.
This is one copy.
Yes, I'm sorry, I didn't make a copy for everybody.
Pass that to Rachel.
It's 6 pages long, I apologize. Some of those medications.
I think what I'm most concerned about is we've only had one, and this is no offense to y'all, okay? Only one organization that's even remotely interested in coming in here. And that kind of bothers me, because like anything else, competition's always good with everything you do. We are trying to get the best we can for our people here. That's what we're doing this for. Are you going to be able to staff this as well as Decatur, increasing your size of your, you know, you're, what, talking 6 units in Decatur on a 24-hour rotation? And I take it you do 24 on, 48 off, like most of these do, or do you do a 12 and 12, you know? Are you going to have enough people to be able to do that and maintain 2 rigs down here with the same rotation?
The Decatur area is would be ran by a different business unit. The one that would be helping here the citizens of Shelbyville and Shelby County. We would utilize the current staff as well as our help from Matt Toon and Effingham. But right now, our goal is to use the existing staff that are accustomed to the area, know the people, know the hospital, the routes. I mean, that we would rely pretty heavily on the current pre-hospital care providers in Shelbyville.
Are any of these people from the Decatur ambulance service that are here now?
I just know a few that have said that they were interested, but I don't know if they go back and forth. Honestly, I don't. That's Decatur area's business. I'm not sure.
And I believe you are a non-union organization?
We are, right now we are, yes.
Do you have plans to organize or have the outside, those people organized?
Those topics have been discussed, and it's up to obviously the employees and their rep. But those are negotiations that haven't happened yet because we weren't sure what was going to happen in the local governments. But that's certainly, I mean, the talk that is happening.
Well, again, I'm just disappointed that others wouldn't be interested in coming in here. Why, I don't know. I'm not privy to their mindset that they had there. I know there's been chatter about this being exclusively written for you. Whether it is or is not, I don't know. I can't answer that because, again, I wasn't in the meetings to see what was being written down and whatnot. But
Commissioner Schaefer, if I may, sir, regardless of the ordinance or what is written, we're interested in providing for the city and the county. I mean, I can't answer for those other companies, whoever they may be. Sure. But I have family that live in Shelbyville. I have employees that live in Shelby County. Yes, we are a larger corporation, but we're ran small town. I mean, that's our goal, is to provide. So I can't answer why another company.
sure, well, I understand that. I do. I understand that completely. Again, I'm concerned for the welfare of the individuals here, as with everybody else, because if we don't have ambulance coverage, if we have to go with a volunteer system, I don't feel comfortable with a volunteer system. I like to have people on call 24/7 in this area. I think, given that we have the hospital here, I realize this is not a surgical unit, but somebody that needs help that can be stabilized and then shipped out, that's a big plus in this area, huge plus.
Sure.
So
I don't,
oh, I'm sorry.
no, that's all right.
Please go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, I don't know with the announcement today, if some of the people who said they were no longer interested may be interested. I don't know, you know, I assume since you guys showed up that, since you're taking Decatur, you are still interested.
Yeah, that is our goal, Mayor.
Yeah, I read the report from the city of Decatur on the four, and I think it was the same four people who originally approached the city, or the same four people who approached the city of Decatur, and I read the report, you know, from the city manager up there on their selection process. So, you know, believe me, you guys are very qualified, and I'm not meaning this as anything negative. But, you know, we do want to make sure that we have anybody that may be interested, that they're not prevented from expressing that interest.
Sure.
You know, that it may be that they're offering something that's less in a level of care, but, you know, unless they're willing to address us and express that, I don't know if we know, so.
You know, I obviously want the highest level of patient care that we can provide for our community. I think we all can agree on that. I just feel inadequately prepared to make a decision on this because I don't know enough about the difference between the advanced life care and basic life care and what other providers would be providing and which things on this list may or may not be advantageous for us to require, and does this preclude some applicants from applying because they don't meet some of these criteria? So I just don't feel prepared to adopt a standard of care unless it was the Illinois Department of Public Health Region 6 standard of care, which is already in place, as I understand.
Can I make a comment?
Yeah, you bet.
I'm here for Family Ambulance. We have mutual aid agreements with all the surrounding areas. Some of that equipment, we are ALS, part, you know, when we have paramedic, like myself, and we have 3 others. Some of this equipment we don't require to carry on our ambulance, so the adoption of this could preclude us from, you know, into the city of being able to come in here and help in a mass casualty situation, in our opinion. We're having our lawyers look at that, but I would bring that to your attention. We're not sure yet whether.
That's my concern, is I don't know enough about this to make it.
Like the medication pump, the BiPAP, all of that stuff, but then later, we don't, normal ALS ambulance services don't carry that level of equipment. It's inter-hospital critical care. I worked for VAS until last year, and I'm critical care certified for level 1 critical care. But normal ALS ambulances don't carry that level of equipment, and so I would ask you to look at that equipment specifically. Thank you.
You bet. Yeah, the gentleman.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mayor. I'm just going to resound what he said. I'm from Windsor. I know Findlay and Windsor both have been called into Shelbyville for mutual aid from time to time. And our concern is with this policy, are we prohibited from doing that? Will there be some kind of a penalty or a fine if we come into the city limits if a policy like this is passed? We have ALS and BLS units in Windsor as well, and we do not have the equipment that is outlined in that. So there's just some concern about mutual aid agreements and things like that. So, thank you.
You bet. Jack, do you have any idea on?
Yeah, so the next item on the agenda is for the actual license, and there, it specifically discusses if there's a catastrophe, that a license would not be required, so I don't think the minimum equipment would be required in that instance either. We can definitely spell that out. That would definitely not be the intent.
We're just worried about it saying standard of care, you know, a legal challenge of, you know, well, they don't have it, we were forced to have it type thing, you know, where does that put us? As far as mutual aid agreement?
I can see you coming very easily, and I realize your bread and butter is transfers. So when the transfers, got 2 units on transfer, something happens, we're gonna have to have you come in here. And I think that's where this licensing agreement spells that out. In the case of an emergency like that, there is, you know, all bets are off on this. Yeah, come in and help, that's first and foremost, obviously.
Right.
Obviously, I think
We're gonna do what's
we're
best
gonna
for the
nickel dime on that, then we're hurting. But I think, in answer to your question, I don't think it would be a problem if you came in, myself, the way that ordinance was written. I mean, it's pretty plain that, yeah, you have that ability to come in here and do that. But again, myself, I want ambulance coverage. That's it, plain and simple.
Commissioner, if I may, we look forward to working with, we don't have the luxury of, in some of their areas, of a mutual aid or first responder type, or volunteer services. We look forward to working with, Windsor and Findlay, because, quite frankly, we've all pretty much gone to the same schooling. We've worked closely with these guys when I used to work in Mattoon. So, however you guys word it or decide on it, yes, there are times that we may have to rely on mutual aid, and those would be, we would reach out to them before all this is decided, but despite whatever you guys come up with, families come first, patient care is utmost important, so whatever level of equipment, as long as it is you guys see fit that they've already provided a service to your area and they meet the requirements of IDPH, we look forward to working with them. If that's the route that it goes.
You guys have any questions? Or?
Well, my main concern is that we have a response available in Shelbyville as we've had in the past, or better. On my way here for this meeting, I saw an ambulance in the park with a person on a stretcher. I don't know what the situation was. Police officer was there. I don't know, what the concern was, but we need to have adequate coverage for the city of Shelbyville as well as the county of Shelby. And I don't know, you guys are now connected with Decatur, as I understand it. Can you provide that kind of service that we had talked about previously to the city of Shelbyville as we go forward?
Yes, sir. My understanding right now is there's 2 advanced life support ambulances in Shelbyville. I don't know how they do their coverage as far as, do they both go out on transfers? I don't know that. Based off of the numbers that were provided from the hospital and based off of numbers of calls that are ran yearly, and depending on how you guys word whatever it is, the documents you want to put forward, our goal would be to have 2 advanced life support, a paramedic and basic trucks in the city of Shelbyville to help cover Shelbyville and the county. Of course, as you mentioned, Commissioner, the hospital, yes, there would be transfers, but unless it's an emergent transfer, there would be no reason to leave but one. We'd have to leave 1 truck in the area to help service the 911 calls. Now, if that one goes out on an emergent transfer, of course, this is just depending on what you guys come up with verbally, we would rely on our mutual aid partners in Windsor and Findlay and Bethany and Swords, or have trucks from Mattoon come this way until those trucks are back in the area. I'm not sure how it's spelled out in those ordinances you have. I think that would be our goal right off the bat, is to provide the 911 service.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Kirk Allen. I'm speaking as a fire chief who runs a fire protection district with 2 ALS units. Granted, I'm in Edgar County. I want to commend the commissioner's questions in regards to this concern. You have a standard already established. It's IDPH and Region 6. I would be curious to know who created the standard you're looking at, because the information that was shared at the county was not accurate. The county was told that this is the same as Region 6, and it is not. I can tell you there was another agency that would have been here tonight. Unfortunately, something happened with their schedule and they couldn't be here tonight. I don't know if you've put it out for bid or not, but I know for a fact other agencies were interested in the business. But with the standard of care that's being adopted like the county did, it's a waste of time for them, because it's cost prohibitive on having things that are not necessary or required for an ALS ambulance. And I think that's done by design, so I'd be curious to know who created that document. That's all I have, thank you. Thank you for your due diligence, I do appreciate it.
I do have a question too. I think everything's coming down to this, it's sounding like we're looking at, and I hate to say this because it always comes back to that, it's money. We, the city, do we pay you anything for you to be in this town?
No, sir.
So, and any of this, what's the big deal if they do come in here? You know, if it's one of these things that if your requirements are more stringent, it looks to me like, and you know my son, I discussed this with him, and he was of the opinion that, yeah, some of this stuff is in there, but nothing that I discussed with him did he say was frivolous and not necessary or wouldn't be of any use whatsoever. And he's been in this for 14, 16 years doing this.
Sure.
So I feel pretty comfortable with his opinion on this. So, I mean, I want ambulance coverage for this town. And I don't care who it is, I just want ambulance coverage for this town. And if another, again, I know where your bread and butter is. My boy did it for long enough. I know where the money comes from. And it's transfers. Emergency care doesn't pay the way a transfer does. Most of that's covered by either Medicare, insurances, whatnot. It's like the helicopter. The helicopter doesn't make any money until you pay the insurance on the thing. So I just, I don't know if we're getting bogged down into some fine lines here that we're looking at brush strokes instead of big pictures. But I think if we can get ambulance coverage in for our city and for our citizens of this county and surrounding counties, because you're going to go over there too. If the time comes, you're going to have mutual aid no matter where you go. You're going to go wherever you're called to go. That's just the way it is. And I think we're getting bogged down into some things that, and I had questions too. I'm going to admit it. When I first came in here, I had questions on this. Why is it legitimately necessary? You explained to me why it was. So I just think that we got, we need to get this done. One way or the other.
The only thing that I would recommend or ask for is in that document, if you adopt that standard of care, just exclude mutual aid,
No, there will be no.
No, I mean, so we don't have to carry that equipment, is if you guys adopt that equipment, it's required. Just to exclude mutual aid, so because if you adopt that, I'm not sure legally we could come in here without that equipment that you guys that's in this standard of care. I know the attorney said that he thought it would be okay, but, I mean, it specifically says in here.
So even if we
We're not here, I'm not here to keep anybody out of town. I want service for this town. I'm just here to make sure that everybody understands what could impact other agencies outside coming in here and mutual aid to you guys. 'Cause we do that, we have done that several times the last couple months.
Well, again, I want the best service that we can get, but I'm not sure that two services could survive if we were to license two, and the call volume is just not there to do that. And so if these requirements do preclude others, I think that would be detrimental to our process. I think, again, I keep coming back to if Illinois Department of Public Health already has a standard for ambulance care, for advanced life care and basic life care, then I don't understand why we're looking to add things to that. And in the licensing process, we could also specify if there was something additional we wanted to get a license. So we could do that on the backside without adopting an additional standard of care.
Troy, do you know who or where these guidelines or requirements came from?
There, what, you said that on Department of Health in Region 6, that extra on there was your critical care stuff and such as that. It came from another county.
What county? Who wrote it?
It came from Effingham County,
Who wrote it?
one of their attorneys down there.
Wrote the standard here?
Yeah, Kurt?
Yes, thank you. I agree with what you said. The standard of care, if you don't have it, you can put whatever you need in your license, no matter who you hire. I think it is a stumbling block. right? You really don't need it. You have the power to put in your licensing what you want to do. My recommendation for what it's worth is you don't need it because it could potentially be a hindrance and adds all kinds of extra work you have to go into if you adopt it. Thank you.
You bet. Are there any other questions or?
I feel like if these other groups wanted to be in here, regardless of what this document right here says, or whatever, this standard of care, if they really wanted to be in here, they'd have people in here representing their organization. Because all they have to do is come in here and say, well, we don't agree with that, and we have the choice to, anything could be done with this. So I'm just of the opinion that if they don't want to be here, it's not that they're turned off by this, they don't want to be in here.
You've had other people here before,
Yeah.
though,
Yeah, we did,
presented.
but they're not here tonight, are they?
But these people, some of these people
Yes,
weren't
we
there
have to be
here
moved.
then.
Those were.
Okay.
But those other entities know that if this standard of care that benefits them gets passed, they're out anyway.
But it
They're
hasn't
screwed
been
glued and out
passed.
too.
Yeah.
Just like
It's,
this gentleman
we're
just said.
having that discussion now, whether to even adopt
And
this.
you've got your other responding, help here from Finley and from Windsor saying if you adopt this, they don't have that equipment. Why do you need to be broader than IDPH in Region 6?
Not this
Region 6 is
document,
broader than IDPH.
this is the one that would affect them, not this one.
Okay.
This one, the ordinance for them to come in here with mutual aid, not
But-
this one.
But your ordinance has standards broader than IDPH in Region 6, correct?
No,
The ordinance of the city is talking about passing.
The licensing ordinance is,
The standard
that's
of
licensing.
that's separate from the
This is
standard of care.
licensing.
But the
We're not
standard
talking
of
about that, we're
care-
talking
I
about.
am. What I'm saying is this is what we're looking at, the standard of care right
You're on
here.
item number 14, which is a request
I
to approve the
understand that.
standard, so how did you go to number 15?
Because right now, this is what we're looking at. If we don't adopt this, we don't adopt it, right?
That's the
Am I
only item
wrong?
we're talking about right
There's
now.
there's no ordinance for
Right.
standard of care.
This is just
The
licensing.
ordinance would be licensing.
Right.
And the licensing ordinance refers to the person applying for a license agreeing to comply with the standards of care that the city implements, which again can be done after the fact. The licensing specifically states that for items of catastrophe, no license is required, which means that by virtue of that, none of the minimum standards apply either, or that none of the standard of care applies.
I understand.
So if you don't pass number 14 and you want to license them, if you don't pass number 14 and you announce that to the other entities that might have a willingness to come in here, do you not put that out there to them that you're not going to go more strict than Region 6 and IDPH? So that they go, oh, okay, they're not going more strict than that. They're not going to require, this equipment that we don't have because it's not required by regions. And then you do get some competition? That's a question.
Okay, competition for what? Coverage? What the bottom line, if we get competition, you bring 15 people in here, what's the bottom line to the city and the county of Shelbyville? There's no change, there's no money. We're not looking at our money helping them. They're providing a service
So
to
if you don't
us.
pass 14 and you license Abbott, then so be it.
Well, thank you, I'm glad you appreciate it.
You don't need to be smart with me.
No,
You don't need to be smart with me.
Oh, I am.
serious
we-
So that's
thing.
what
No,
it
you
is.
don't need
Do
to.
we,
Well,
No.
I tell you, do we want
Stupid
to,
sound, isn't it?
do we want to look at the things that the one gentleman provided for IDPH Region 6, compare it to the ambulance standard of care, and see if there's anything, if we, and correct me if I'm wrong, that we can be more stringent if we want to be, but if we do, is there a good reason for it? And so do we want to review these and table a motion for this evening?
Before we do that, I just have a question for Jack. If we do not adopt a different standard, are we under the county's standard then by default, or?
In my mind, the likelihood is there'll be one provider for the county and the city, because I don't think there's enough for two. That's my guess, but I would defer to those providers to say if they want to do that. If they don't, then we have one, and I think by default, they would be adhering to the county's standards.
So the county standard would apply basically unless we adopt a difference.
Which
Or if
we
don't-
wouldn't want to adopt a different
Well-
standard, I don't think. But I guess what I'm saying is.
If we choose not to adopt this standard, will we be?
I think if there's only one provider, and that provider is agreeing to comply with that standard, then that would extend to the city. So I guess what I'm saying, if there's more than one provider, then no, I don't think we would be stuck with that.
Yeah. Jim.
Thank you, Mayor. Attorney Riley, you made mention that it's covered for mass casualty incidents. I would be more concerned about a situation that has happened recently where one truck is on a transfer, their other truck is on a 911 call, and then there's a second 911 call. I would
So-
hope that that would be covered there.
And let me just read what this says. No person, firm, or corporation shall furnish, operate, conduct, maintain, or engage in the operation of ambulance service within the city without having a valid current city license for such service, except in the case of catastrophe, wherein the number of ambulances exceeds the number available from licensed services. So as I interpret that, it's any time. You don't have
Anytime,
enough
okay.
ambulances, you can come in.
And then to Commissioner Schaefer's point, it's not a great deal of money, but there is money. The county taxes for a county tax, and so any ambulance service operating in Shelby County is entitled to proceeds from that county tax. So there are funds. It doesn't necessarily come directly from the city funds, but the taxpayers of Shelbyville Fire Protection District are paying into the county tax fund that does get distributed out currently to DAS and then whomever service you do
That's a fixed amount, is that right?
per call. It's,
Okay,
So-
that's fixed, it's not a negotiable item when
That's
you're
correct.
coming in here.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
In regards to the county ordinance, if you could have your attorney look into the county code, unfortunately, the county didn't read what their powers are, which are a lot less than a municipality. The county code specifically says they cannot adopt an ordinance that's inconsistent with state law or IDPH. And that's exactly what they did. Nobody read the statute. Nobody asked any of the great questions you folks are asking. You really don't need this. Find whoever you want to license. If they got the equipment, great. You're that much better off. But I really think you ought to just table that, in my opinion.
Sharon, would you?
The previous ambulance service, Decatur, did you have, like an ordinance to license them at the time? Or is this something new you're doing?
This is something new because the Shelbyville and Decatur area, it's my understanding,
I'm so
going back, what,
confused.
20 or 30 years,
Right.
that the Shelbyville area ambulance service started and it got bought out by Decatur. And we had the service, there wasn't a need. So, this is something that we're all facing new now.
So
We're
this,
trying to-
okay, so this is a new
Yes,
ordinance for the licensing? Okay.
yes.
Okay.
I don't feel educated enough to make a decision on this standard of care, and I feel it should be tabled.
Are you making a motion as such?
I'll make that motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Shaw? Roll call, please.
Gray,
Yes.
Schaefer,
No.
Shanks,
Yes.
Scholl,
Yes.
Mayor,
Yes. Item number 15 is a request to approve an ordinance licensing ambulance services within the city of Shelbyville. Mr. Kyle, do you want to?
Sure. So, the municipal code authorizes corporate authorities of each municipality to license and regulate and establish standards for the operation of ambulances. This is basically just indicating that process. The license fee is written as $50 a year. It would expire on April 30th of each year. Subject to renewal, there is penalty provisions in the instance that license procedures are not followed. Insurance regulations and so forth. You have some notice requirements in here in case they want to terminate service. And there are references to standards of care, if adopted, that those will be followed, and also they will comply with the IDPH regulations. There's one thing that's not in here. There is a version that has this in there. It's limiting the number of licenses, but the version that you're looking at does not have that provision in there. So that'd be one thing we probably need to discuss.
Do we have any thoughts on whether we want to limit the number of licenses, or?
I think we could support two.
I don't think economically,
No.
that the area would support two. But
The other version of the ordinance has it limited to one.
The danger of limiting it would be if you had one, maybe they were not doing the job appropriately, or you had questions about them, you wouldn't have the ability then to just select another one and give them a license. If you only had one, you'd have to go through the process of drawing the license.
I kind of looked at it the way we do our liquor licenses. We just add them and subtract them as necessary. I mean, if we got in a situation like that, I think we could add one very, very easily. Just be a simple ordinance change.
Well, if we don't have a standard to measure the performance of the ambulance service, then I think it becomes more difficult to change services if we find that they're not meeting the standard that we expect for the community. So I think that goes back to, we need to have an ordinance so where we have a standard in which we measure the service that's provided. I don't think we can ignore that. But I think we've got to decide what we want.
yeah, Shannon?
But they're measured by the state and by Region 6. That's who controls the ambulance services, the state regulations in Region 6. And they have to fill a zillion reports out to these people that they're complying to everything they do. So I think by them reporting to the state and the region, I think that's how they're being controlled. The ambulance people can probably answer better than I.
And I guess one thing I'm wondering about is, do you guys feel comfortable with the wording so that for the mutual aid, or do we need to add something in there specifically?
No, Finley's fine with the mutual aid language. I didn't see that language, so I didn't know that existed. We're fine with that.
Okay.
And I would say that the state and Region 6 kind of look at our call numbers, but they really don't set bars of how call coverage percentage of how many calls that you would expect your service in your town to cover. I know Macon County does that. That's the reason why this CID, or the Central Illinois Regional Dispatch Center, tracks response times to their calls. So, they're metric, certain number, they have to be on scene from dispatch time to arrival on scene time in a certain number of minutes. Our system agreements with the state, we kind of outline that, but once you get outside our territory, there's no limit to how the time we could be at, in Shelbyville or something. We don't have a requirement.
Yeah.
As a city, I would think that, to your point, sir, what you want to be looking for in proficiencies are calls covered. Are they being covered, and in a time frame? Are trucks staffed? Are they not staffed? Do you want to provide, do you want a service in this town to provide ALS level of care or BLS level of care? Region 6, IDPH, they set those types of standards of what kind of medical equipment belongs on their trucks. So you wouldn't have to employ anyone to check on that. The state's already doing that. for your city, for your citizens, how quickly are the calls being covered? Are they being covered in a timely fashion, or are they not? Are the trucks being staffed, or are they not? In that, I hate to regress, but in that standard of care, there was wording in there that outlined what the housing arrangements were required. Well, OSHA is going to take care of that. The Department of Labor is going to take care of that. If they're not being taken care of, the employees are not being taken care of, that's someone else's problem, not necessarily the city of Shelbyville. So I think your standard of care, how their proficiency, how they're doing, whoever's in here, is are they covering the calls, and are they doing so in a timely fashion as outlined by IDPH in Region 6?
Thank you. I think the minimum standard we want is ALS in this town. I don't think we want BLS. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I agree that we need to have ALS service available.
In your situation here, yes, ALS service would be the best, you know. The hospital here is provide general stabilization of the patient, but stroke patients, cardiac cath patients, we at Finley don't, our regions told us not to go to the most qualified hospital, so we don't come here because they can't handle those hospitals, or those patients are just going to transfer them out, so we take them all to Decatur or to a proper facility that can handle that patient. So, I mean, ALS ambulances, I would think almost required in this area. I mean, that's the reason why we went to ALS. We were ILS and we went to ALS just to provide that extra level of care for our citizens and our taxpayers and our partners.
So what do we think of the licensing ordinance? Do we want to have a licensing ordinance?
I think we do. I think we want to be in the business of licensing service, whether we limit it to one or not. I guess I have questions about that. But
I think we need a license standard for the community.
Jack, correct me if I'm wrong, we could go back and revise this ordinance and add something if we felt that somebody was most of the way there, that they were deficient in some area, we could come back in and declare that they need to add that.
Yeah, so it does say that they're gonna comply with public health requirements and so forth, and there's a revocation section in terms of if they're not complying with what they need to do.